15 strangest creatures found in the water. You've probably watched enough deep-sea footage for all you curious about the unknown marine world. But what about the stuff that's come to us? The curious beasts that have ended up in fishing nets or washed up on shore? 15. Two-toned lobster. Starting off our list is this little guy. When people first saw pictures of this rare lobster, most joked that whoever caught it had found a half-cooked lobster in the sea. And who could blame them, since that's exactly what it looks like? Alan Robinson, a fisherman based in eastern Maine, was the one who caught the lobster while in Dyer's Bay. And it really says something about it, since the two-toned lobster was enough to stump Robinson, who's been fishing for lobster for over 20 years. He then donated the lobster to the Mount Desert Oceanarium, where the creature was further researched. At the oceanarium, it was explained that these kinds of lobsters aren't impossible to find. They're just really rare. In fact, in the past 35 years, there have only been 2 lobsters like this to ever be reported. 14. The basket kraken. Back in 2014, video of this writhing creature made headlines after it was pulled onto a boat in Singapore. A business executive from Singapore was the one who fished the creature and filmed it on camera. It at first had people crying that the kraken, the legendary sea monster of the deep, existed. What you're really looking at is what is known as a basket starfish. It might be a little hard to tell, but they typically have just 5 arms. All that other stuff are branchlets attached to their arms. They use these physical features to create a sort of basket net that catches small crustaceans for consumption, which includes sea cucumbers, sea urchins, and even starfish. The basket starfish place themselves in areas where the current is strong, letting the ocean do most of the work for them as their prey land in their midst. 13. Lion's mane jellyfish. It may not look like much washed up on shore, but in the sea, the lion's mane jellyfish looks a lot more like a jellyfish. One washed up on shore in Greencastle Beach in Northern Ireland. Jellyfish wash up on shore all the time, though they're usually much smaller. Lion's mane jellyfish, like this one, have an average diameter of up to 50 centimeters. These types of animals coming up on beaches has started to be somewhat of a regular occurrence, which in relation to the history of the environment in Ireland is very strange indeed. 12. Lancet fish. It looks like a nightmare caught in a fishing reel. And if fangfish are a nightmare for you, then it really was one. This lancet fish was caught in not some far-off remote tropical river, but instead at Nag's Head in North Carolina. In fact, you can find lancet fish in all oceans, excluding polar regions, though they've been seen off the coast of Greenland, so they make it pretty far. These type of fish can grow up to 6 to nearly 7 feet long, if that doesn't scare you even more. Daryl Law, an employee at the North Carolina Aquarium, was the one who caught the thing, who then photographed it and released it back into the water. 11. Montauk monster. Those of you well-versed in internet hoaxes might be holding out on being fascinated by this, since it looks like one of those things that has to be the result of a little photo manipulation. And while no one's sure what this monster thing is that washed up on shore in Montauk, New York back in the summer of 2008, what's certain is that it's no photo hoax or a prop photographed on the beach to cause a stir. The body was once a real living thing, with many thinking it was the carcass of a raccoon that washed up on shore. It all started when Jenna Hewitt and a few of her friends found it on Ditch Plains Beach. Hewitt took a photograph, and soon the image was run for the local newspaper. While most abide by the raccoon idea, others theorize that it's perhaps a turtle without a shell. 10. Frilled shark. Look at that face. Look at that mouth. That's not something you want accidentally caught in your fishing net. The frilled shark has about 300 teeth in total, and one was caught near the coast of Victoria, Australia in 2015. What makes that interesting is the fact that frilled shark are incredibly rare to spot, though their lineage has been around for the past 80 million years. This legacy has given the frilled shark the name of a living fossil. The one caught in Australia measures about 6 feet long and was found by David Gio, a skipper, who came across it while out on a fishing trawler, and has been so for the past 30 years. And even he didn't know what he had come across that day. The specimen was then sent to the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, which confirmed its classification as a frilled shark. 9. The hairy blob. The hairy blob is the descriptive nickname given to what seems to be an animal carcass that washed up on a beach in the Philippines. What kind of animal did the carcass belong to? Good question. Whatever it was measured around 20 feet long and is said to weigh over 4,000 pounds. What is known is that it's definitely the decomposing body of a sea animal, with many thinking it might have been a dugong or a manatee, sea mammals that are closely related. However, it seems it is actually a decomposing whale, perhaps a sperm whale, which would account for its size. Most likely, after the 6.7 magnitude earthquake that hit the islands earlier that month, it probably helped propel the body to the shore. 8. Chagrin snake. This snake was found after 2 men were fishing in the Chagrin River in Ohio this past winter. Snakes get caught in fishing lines and nets all the time, but usually they're of a smaller variety. The one caught in the river? Well, it measured at 16 feet long, so not so usual. The snake was not alive when found, and it was probably due to the extremely low temperatures that bring on the frost, an environment not ideal for an animal like this. But what was a 16-foot constrictor doing in the rivers of Ohio? It's guessed that it was most likely a pet snake that was released or escaped. 7. Furry dolphin. What's with these furry creatures washing up on shore? It's both terrifying and confusing, and usually no one knows what's going on. An even weirder detail to the story: the furry creature that washed up on the Russian coast not only had a hairy tail, it also had a beak. There hasn't been any new news about what this could possibly be, with the last heard word on it being scientists referring to it as a mutant from a prehistoric era, or quite possibly a giant beaked whale. It was most likely living in a warmer current and somehow ended up in the cold waters near Russia. Still, beyond that, no one knows anything else. 6. Fish with 2 mouths. We take a trip back to the waters of Australia for this next one. Not long after the frilled shark was fished out of the Victorian Waters, was this 2-mouthed creature fished from the water in South Australia. Garry Warrick, who's been a fisherman for 30 years, was the one who netted this bony bream fish back in 2015. If you look closely, you might be able to tell the mouths are actually joined together, although the bottom one apparently cannot close. 5. Megamouth Shark. We know. Almost every shark out there is a frightening shark. And the more nature documentaries you watch, the more you realize there's more sharks out there than you thought there were. Well, introducing the Megamouth Shark, a creature only found in deep waters. On average, female sharks can grow up to 16 feet long and weigh up to 2,679 pounds. This one measured at 15 feet long and was found by fishermen who brought the shark by a stretcher in 2015. It was found in Burias Pass in central Philippines. This wouldn't be so remarkable if they weren't such rare creatures to spot, with only 70 megamouth sharks ever recorded to have been seen, with the species having been discovered as late as 1976. 4. Two-headed porpoise. You've heard of two-mouthed fish. Well, here's the first two-headed porpoise ever found. It was fished from a trawl net by a Dutch fisherman in the North Sea this past spring. It was shortly thrown back into the ocean just to be safe, but the fisherman was sure to catch some pictures of it before doing so. While conjoined twins is an anomaly that's already rare in humans, it's still more common in people and domestic animals more than it is in wild animals. Observation of its physicality shows that the porpoise was no longer alive and that it was not out of infancy. 3. Everything found by Roman Fedortsov. Roman Fedortsov is a fisherman from Russia, based in Murmansk. It might seem weird that so many people actually know who that is, and you have social media to thank for that. Fedortsov posts his strange fish finds on platforms like Twitter, where millions of people around the world get to gawk at the pictures of the strange creatures he's retrieved from the ocean. Of his collection is a frilled shark, and you know what that looks like, with another one appearing to be some terrifying hybrid between a lizard, bird, and fish. Of his collections is this big-eyed fish, which actually looks pretty forlorn when you take into account its expression. Most of his catches seem too strange to believe, and yet a lot of them are recognizable if you know your rare deep-sea animals. 2. The 50-foot monster. People were horrified and intrigued to find this huge carcass floating in the waters of Indonesia just this past May. Everyone knew it had to have been a rotting carcass of a huge animal, one that measured up to 50 feet long. For a while, this decomposing monster remained a mystery, until it was recently revealed that it was probably a baleen whale. Seram, an island in Indonesia, is known for being a migration route for baleen whales, which solves that mystery for the most part. 1. Cyclops shark. Again, this is one of those cases where people on the internet were sure this had to be fake. It just has to be. How can something look like Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc. and be a real creature? And yet, this 22-inch long fetus was the real deal. The eye is said to have been a functioning one too. It was discovered by a fisherman who was at the Cerralvo Island in the Gulf of California. The fisherman, Enrique Lucero Leon, had caught a pregnant dusky shark. The Cyclops was still in an embryo when Leon cut it open.